Thanks, Bill. You guys are gonna have to bear with me a little bit. My brain's like I kind of say it, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but it's kind of like a fart in a skillet that bounces all over the place because I got so many issues I deal with. So I need to have some notes. As Bill said, I'm Dave Duquette. I Protect the Harvest. I've had the question several times over yesterday and today. What is Protect the Harvest? And why is Lucas Oil and Protect the Harvest together? Forrest Lucas, back in 2010, was approached by one of his ranch managers because there were some folks that wanted to put some signs up. He's got a lot of highway frontage down there in Missouri, and they wanted to put some signs up on the ranch along the highway opposing a proposition that HSUS had brought to Missouri called Proposition B. Now, it was mainly an anti-pet industry kind of a bill, a proposition, and I won't go into all the details because I could spend all night talking to you about these things. But basically, what happened? The HSUS had it. They did a ballot initiative in the cities, and outside of the rural areas and into the urban areas, they were running about 78%. They were going to win this thing, hands down. Forrest jumped into it. When he figured out what was going on, he jumped into it, both feet, all the way hit neck deep, and put some money behind it. And he turned it around to where the Humane Society only won that ballot initiative by 1%. And with that, the legislature, he was able to convince the legislature through Protect the Harvest, and that's where Protect the Harvest was born. That they come up with the name there, and this is before my time with Protect the Harvest, but he was able to get the legislature to basically gut the bill and the initiative to where it was ineffective and actually benefited. So that you could say that was the first big loss for the Humane Society of the United States, and it was the first big win really for Protect the Harvest. And since then, we started off being a very sort of a myopic kind of an organization where we were just trying to take down the radical animal rights groups. We were trying to oppose everything that they did that wants to take away our food supply and our way of life. And since then, it's grown. We've gotten into a lot of other issues. We've realized that we had to branch out in a lot of different directions. One of those directions is, and some of you may know about this, but probably likely most of you haven't heard about it, but there's Proposition 2 in California, 2008, was the egg bill. I call it the Egg Utopia Bill. They wanted all the chickens to be cage-free, and they wanted them to be able to run around and play and do all that. Well, most of us know chickens will kill each other, or it causes a lot more disease. And what most people don't understand in the public when I talk to people is that we had egg production down to a science, and chickens aren't going to lay eggs if they're not happy. And that's a point nobody really tried to make back then. And if they're stressed or they're not happy, they're not going to lay eggs. So it was kind of a Humane Society way of trying to stop the egg industry. But that's what we saw back then. And when I say we've kind of morphed or re-looked at things and seen what the real game plan is, we thought they just wanted cage-free eggs. So what they did there in California was make it so they had to go cage-free. Well, that was going to make the California egg producers not be able to compete with any other egg producer in the country that ships eggs. California consumes 9 billion eggs a year, whether it's putting into cake mixes or however wherever they use the egg products. 9 billion eggs. California only produces 2 billion eggs a year, or they used to. I don't even think they're there now because they've had to go to all these restrictions. 7 billion eggs come from 29 other states into California. So what the California egg producers did is a couple years later, they got a law passed that says if you don't produce your eggs to the California standards, you cannot ship to California. And I'm sure most of you are aware that violates the Dormant Commerce Clause or the Interstate Commerce Clause. But California doesn't seem to care. They do it with their emission stuff. They do it in several different ways. They've tried to do that. So what we've asserted now, well, let me back up a little bit. So then question 3 shows up here in Massachusetts. The Humane Society decides they're going to try to legislate all of agriculture from Sacramento. Well, they don't figure that's good enough. And the reason they're doing that is because they can't get these bills passed or get their regulations passed in DC. So they're going to try to do it from an urban area. And it's a brilliant plan. I mean, you got to give them credit for having a brilliant plan to do it. But what they did now is they took it a step further, actually several steps further. This is Proposition 2 on steroids there in Massachusetts, where they brought in the veal huts and the gestation crates also. So Massachusetts, which produces absolutely a freckle of nothing, is going to be, they're not going to have any food going into Massachusetts, because nobody, not only will you have to, the way they got this law wrote, this question 3, not only will you have to produce and show proof of production to their standards of that animal or that product, you have to show proof of their standards of production of the parents of that animal. So think about the nightmare there. You know, it makes all the ID stuff look even scarier, doesn't it? But so what we did was we went to the, Forrest has his ranch in Missouri, so he'd gone to and Mike Parsons, who's now the governor there, is a good friend of Forrest, and this before he was a governor. And we asked Mike to get the AG to file a lawsuit against California. Well, he did and he wouldn't listen to the people that we wanted him to listen to. And so when he did it, he kind of screwed up. He just really screwed up. And the Ninth Circuit kicked it out. And then the second AG went in and tried to do it again. And basically, Protect the Harvest, what we did was we hired, many of you probably know Gary Bays, or have heard of Gary Bays in DC. Gary's a great friend of mine. He's been like a mentor. He's been rated the #1 ag attorney in the country. And Gary was able to, between Andy Miller, former Virginia AG there, a couple of great older gentlemen that have a lot of smarts, and they put together and helped and bring together 12 states attorneys generals now. Or actually, we got the Utah Attorney General and a couple other states to file an amicus brief with the Ninth Circuit on that same case, which they accepted, which made it so that we could file another lawsuit. So Protect the Harvest is behind stopping that from going away and making it so that we were able to engage again. Now, I'm just a high school educated Marine horse trainer. You know, that's what I am. So I don't know I'm not going to be able to express all the great or the specific terminology. But what we've done now is we've organized through Andy Miller, the former Attorney General. He's like the grand old man of all the Attorney Generals in the country. We got 12 states Attorney Generals to sign on. One group filed a lawsuit against California on the Dormant Commerce Clause, and another group, another 12 of them, filed a lawsuit against Massachusetts. Those are going to be, and we contend that it should be in the Supreme Court, because state versus state is a Supreme Court issue. So we took it directly to the Supreme Court. It's supposed to be looked at and hopefully will get accepted. We're less likely to get the Missouri one on California accepted as we are the Indiana. The Indiana is the lead. Curtis Hill over there, the AG there, is the lead on the one in Massachusetts, and we're pretty sure that one's going to get accepted. It looks really good. So what does all of that mean? Why am I telling you all this? If the Humane Society is able to do something like this and we don't stop it, if agriculture doesn't stop it, if everybody doesn't look at this and see it, what's going to be next? What are they going to go after next? They're going to go after all the CAFOs, right? And they're going to try to legislate. If they can legislate all of agriculture from Sacramento with a ballot initiative and from Massachusetts where there is no agriculture, we're pretty well screwed. You know, they're gonna get us. So this is something that I want you guys to really hopefully engage on and pay attention to. We do fairly regular updates. You can find all that stuff on the Protect the Harvest website. It's things that are very, very important. And let me see if I can figure out how to make my computer work. So I want to go to a couple other things before I go to the good news. We've all seen Smithfield's, well, I don't know if all of you have, but there's a concerted effort, and I think I have a conspiracy theory in me about who's doing it and why they're doing it. But there's a bunch of lawsuits that are affecting agriculture right now. They are not losable lawsuits. We should be winning all of these. I mean, winning all of them. The nuisance lawsuits that Smithfield's going through right now, they got 10 others coming at them. They just lost the one, and they put that pig farmer out of business down there, the guy that was contracted with Smithfield. They got a huge settlement, and what they're doing is they're claiming nuisance from smell and they claim it several other directions too: smell, dust, waste, manure, all of that stuff. So they're filing these dudes. They come in and they build a housing development right next to a pig farm. Well, that's smart, isn't it? So and what they end up doing is these law firms, and I don't know how they're doing it. I wish I could figure it out. I wish I could get somebody that wasn't getting paid off to ante up and say how they're doing it and why they're doing it, or who came to them, because it's against the law for a law firm to go seek those people. And they're coming in and they're filing huge lawsuits against these farmers, and the insurance companies have to pay it. And all they're doing right now is Smithfield's not going to be affected. The only person going to be affected by these lawsuits is the poor farmer that built a farm on his own dime and contracts with Smithfield. Well, he's done. He can't raise another hog there. So another direction they're going with these things is on nitrates, on a nitrates type issue. How many of you ever heard of the Cow Palace Dairy in Yakima, Washington? 2 years ago, they were put out of business. And that was a winnable lawsuit. So it was about the nitrates in the ground. Cow Palace Dairy sat here. There was a vineyard here, an orchard here, and a hops farm here. All three of those put more nitrates in the ground than that dairy did. But they didn't go out of business. This is an animal enterprise. It's got smell. It looks bad because there's dirt, cows. And so they were able to go in and do this. Well, since then, we found Gary Bays they finally hired him. And this is an interesting thing. You guys will get a kick out of this, because this is where I'm going with this. If you go to hire somebody to save your bacon, you better hire the right law firm. You better hire the right people. And that's one thing. If I can't stress that enough, I can't stress that enough. I mean, I want people to understand that if you come to me, you call me. If you got a problem and you got a lawsuit coming, or you know somebody that is, you call me, and we'll find the right people, because the right people are key. In this nitrates lawsuit, Gary Bays had actually won it in California and also in Indiana. He's won 11 cases where they marched people in and said that their family got blue baby syndrome and got all this stuff from the nitrates, which is impossible. But Gary proved it in the court of law, but they still come after him. And then Smithfield hired a Hillary supporting law firm, and I know all this so I can say it, a Hillary supporting law firm that somebody in Smithfield at the corporate office knew somebody that worked there or was related or married to somebody that worked there. They hired that law firm. It was the wrong people to go fight for them. They don't know the laws. There's a very simple, when I went to the Dairy Federation in Washington after they finally lost the case at the Cow Palace and they were put out of business, these guys were all sitting around and they're asking me what they could do. How can we fix this? And the reason they gave me that they didn't hire Gary Bays was that he was arrogant. An attorney has to tell you what he's won, but I can guarantee you those two words, Gary Bays and arrogant, weren't ever two words I ever put together, and I've known him for a long time. So what I told those dairymen sitting there was, maybe the next time you guys are looking for somebody to save your ass and your whole livelihood, humility's not the virtue you're going to go look for, because that obviously didn't work. And what they did was they hired a really good law firm. They went into Idaho, hired this really good law firm, another one that was connected to somebody in that family, but it was a constitutional law firm. And there's something in every, and I want you guys to remember this if you can. Sometimes I forget it, and I got to jog my memory. But there's a little unknown clause, a little known clause that nobody uses in every right to farm bill that's in every state. And it's called the Statute of Repose. Okay, the Statute of Repose basically says if you have been in business, almost every one of you've been in business, and some of them are on different levels of time frame. But if you've been in business for over a year or more, and you haven't significantly changed your business or your business practices, nobody can come sue you and run you out of business for that. And that's how Gary Bays has won, is he's proven all the accusations wrong. But even going back to this constitutional law firm from Idaho, they didn't even know that one of the things that Gary found here recently on the Cow Palace Dairy, they went out there with a teaspoon deep. That's where they got their tests. That's how they tested the soil. They went in and tested it like that. This constitutional law firm didn't even think that was wrong, or didn't even think to say, whoa, wait a minute, that's surface. And, so those are the kind of things I really want to stress to everybody here. If you hear of somebody, or you hear of a lawsuit that's going on, or you hear something like that, any kind of a lawsuit that's affecting agriculture, or where they're going to come after somebody on a nitrates issue or manure or a feedlot, get the right help. There's a lot of qualified people. Gary's not the only person that's qualified out there to deal with these issues, but he is the best. And I'm very biased that way, because he's not only a great human being, he's also a farmer, big time farmer, big soybean farmer and corn farmer. But his office is in DC, and that's where he lives most of the time. So that's a big thing for me to stress and really want everyone to pay attention to. And that went through a lot of my stuff. And I already got okay. So one thing I want to say too is perseverance. We had the legislator up here. We had Wayne Hage yesterday. And just about everybody here has said perseverance, right? Perseverance, stay with it, go after it. It really, honestly, I mean, I've taken a lot of barbs and arrows from these guys, these animal rights groups. I got death threats for a while, but as soon as they figure out you're not a coward, they run away. They have never touched my place ever. But I also told them I can hit every corner of my 24 acres from my back porch, and I sleep really lightly. And I also said that, and I also said out loud that there's a livestock rustling law still on the books in Oregon, and it says if you own livestock and you deem someone's on your place rustling your livestock, you can shoot first and ask questions later. I don't know as I want to test that, because it may be a hard one to get to stand up, but that's where I'd go with my defense if that was happening. But my point is be tough. It doesn't take much to run these people off. They're scared shitless of anybody that's not a coward. And that's the truth. I mean, if anybody should have got run off, it was me and Sue Wallace on the horse slaughter deal years ago. I don't know how many of you remember Sue Wallace, the Wyoming representative. Yeah. Great lady. She was a great friend of mine. I owe a lot to her, with a lot of the things that I did and being able to get to do, because we were a really good team that way. I can tell you that anybody interested, the horse processing is on its way again. I think we're we're getting a lot closer, and we've got some people in DC that are going to be running a bill, and I think it's getting more positive. I'm also very, I'm sorry, and I don't remember the gentleman's name that was up here talking about the Global Sustainable Roundtable, but I really enjoyed that. That was, and that's, he was right when he talked about being strong, and there you are right there. Yeah. So being tough and strong, that's going forward, being tough, being strong, everybody be engaged. The more we're engaged, the better, and we can keep things rolling along. We at Protect the Harvest, we have a great, and they were talking about the social media deal earlier, and at Protect the Harvest, we have a great group of 3 women that it was 2 for a long time, and now we just hired another one. But they do such a great job on our social media, and we've got close to 250,000 people on our social media page, so we can reach on the ELD mandate. Okay, Protect the Harvest was in the lead on bringing that to the forefront back in, I don't know how many of you saw that, but last year in November, towards the middle of November, we put it out there, and within a week and a half, we had over 1 million views on that article, and it spread like wildfire. That's how you get the word out. That's how you do things like this. And these kinds of, every one of you that gets on social media at all, and if you got a phone, you better get on it and do it so that you can spread the word around. These guys are right. When you take RCAF and you want to get RCAF out there, the keys to it is how many people like it or like a post. And then it starts generating, then it gets on everybody's news feed and everybody sees it. Okay, so those kind of things are extremely important. How many of you understand what's going on with the ELD? I mean, got a really good grasp on that. Because I don't, and I've been working on it. I've been working on it the whole time, you know, and Steve Hilker's been doing a great job. But I still don't understand what we're looking at. But I can tell you one thing. There's a very interesting situation going on in DC that I think everybody should know about, and we're probably going to do a big article about it, and that is the Mitch McConnell, Kentucky, the American Horse Council, and I need to preface this with the American Horse Council so you understand where the ugly family tree is here. Mitch McConnell, or the Horse Council, had put out on their website, they have one little paragraph about the ELD. And all it said was, we sent out a survey to our members and asked them what they wanted us to do on the ELD. So basically what they decided in this paragraph, they said, so as a result of that survey, we decided we are going to inform our members how to comply with the ELD, and we are not going to seek exemptions for the horse industry. They were not. So this is a voice that's supposed to be a big voice in DC for us, right? For the horse, anybody that owns horses, which is all of us, I'm sure. So they're the ones that are supposed to be the voice. I've had a problem with the Horse Council for a long time because they do the same thing on the horse slaughter issue. But when I saw that, I called them out on it, and when we got up to 2 million, views, unique views on our Facebook post about the ELD, and we put out another one, and we significantly got the whole horse industry riled up. And here's an interesting thought, or an interesting part of that. The AQHA Executive Vice President, Craig Huffines, he's a great guy. Probably many of you know him from the Hereford world. He's a great guy, love him. I think he's a little frustrated with what he's dealing with, but I'm not going to put words in his mouth. But he didn't even know this was going on. He had no idea till I showed him our article. And he was like, whoa, wait a minute. Nobody at the Horse Council said anything about it. Okay, so now, here goes the ugly family tree. The Horse Council is a bunch of billionaires the jockey club runs the horse council. The jockey club's a bunch of billionaires from Kentucky and a couple other states, the racehorse folks. They got some big trucking guys that are on the jockey club's board of directors. They want the ELD. Why do they want the ELD? To level the playing field. Because Knight Transportation, who just bought out Swift and 7 other carriers on the East Coast here, was down 16% in production since they started using the ELD. So now Kevin Knight is one of the largest carriers in the United States, if not the largest, and he's down that far in production. So he wants to level the playing field because he can't stay going at the same rate with everybody that isn't running the ELD yet. So back to the ugly family tree, we got Mitch McConnell. Everybody know who Mitch McConnell's wife is? Elaine Chao, Secretary of Transportation. So we got the big boys in the jockey club telling Mitch and Elaine Chao to, stand down on and I'm sure those guys got the jockey club or the horse council to stand down and not say anything because they didn't want anybody making any waves. There's been plenty of waves made through agriculture now. I mean, there's a lot of people doing a lot about the ELD situation. So they're starting to realize what a mess this thing is, and you can't give everybody you can't give everybody an exemption. So now they're trying to figure out, ATA's trying to figure out, how many of you saw the president of the ATA come out here a couple months ago and talk bad about agriculture? Talk bad about how bad agriculture is for trying to seek an exemption on the ELD. Well, in my country, where I live, there's a lot of spuds grown there. And one of the problems that the seed haulers were having this spring was because if they if they didn't get their load done, and that load of seeds had to sit, it frosted that night because that's how early they're, seeding those potatoes. It'd take them twice as long to get them there, but also there's a $4,000 load of seed potatoes they got to send to the cows to eat. So there's a lot more implications to this, and I hope everybody stays engaged on the ELD issue, because that's gonna, and we've got a reprieve on the cattle deal and on the horse deal. And if you're hauling horses anywhere or cattle, whatever you're hauling, and somebody pulls you over right now, you need to have a copy of what the FMCSA says. And what it says is if your state requires you for that load to have a CDL, then you better have a CDL, no matter what state you're in. But if you're in Arkansas, and this wasn't the case up until recently, if you're from New Mexico and you're in Arkansas, and New Mexico doesn't require you to have a CDL for the rig you're driving, you don't have to have one in Arkansas. They may try to say you do, but you don't have to, and that's federal law. So you need to carry, if you're hauling interstate and you're worried about that, you need to carry that piece of paper. And it's right on the FMCSA's website. So very, very important. Okay, now to the best part. So July 10th was probably, besides my 2 boys being born, was probably one of the best days I've had. And that was, it was a long road. It was 2 years of doing a lot of legwork, asking people to write articles, calling and hustling on all kinds of situations there. When I needed cover, I had to call, try to get an article wrote, try to get on some radio show or get in some newspaper to get to run cover basically for the president, to get him to do this. So there was a lot of jockeying and hustling, but also there's something, and I've told a few of you this. I knew nothing about a pardon. I knew nothing about getting a pardon or what it took. So what it takes is you have to fill out almost 200 pages worth of paperwork and send it in. And when you do, it goes to what's called the queue. It goes in the Department of Justice commutation request. And you do not apply for a pardon, you apply for a commutation. So the only thing you're able to apply for is a commute, to commute the sentence. So to get out of jail kind of early card. And which was frustrating to me at first because I didn't understand that, because I see people just get pardoned, and so it took me a while to figure out all the details of this. So the commutation department, that queue, gets on average 100,000 commutation requests a month. So you can imagine why the Hammond's commutation paper has been sitting in the queue for 2.5 years and nobody'd even looked at them. Nobody even knew they were there, but they were in a line. But there's how many hundreds of thousands ahead of them and how many hundreds of thousands around them. So I can tell you that Forrest Lucas is he's very good friends with the vice president. And he's been friends with him since way before he ever became a politician. And he had never one time, he supported him his whole political career, and he never one time asked him for anything except for to look at that. And that went a long ways with the vice president. So to have somebody that caliber and the media makes it, there's some very salacious articles out there about Forrest Lucas being the Republican version of George Soros and all that stuff, and it's pretty comical, some of the things they say about him. But because of his relationship and the fact that through his whole gubernatorial run and all the things that Pence has done over the years, Forrest Lucas never asked him for any favors. And that's what tipped it over. That's what tipped it to where we could get the papers out of the queue and out of line and pull them up here and have them looked at. And when Pence asked his chief counsel to get the commutation papers and looked at, that's when everything changed. And it took a while. There was a lot of questions that had to be answered. There was a lot of things that needed to go on. There was a lot of help. There was a lot of help. There was a lot of great people out there that, towed that line from day one of them going to jail. And I would never take anything away from those folks. I'd never want to. There was a lot of great people out there that supported them, sent Susie Hammond, the Hammond's money, did all kinds of great stuff for them, took care of Susie, helped her out. People like Trent Luce, that's where I heard about the Hammonds, honestly, was on his radio show. So there was no lack of support from a lot of people. I was just the guy that was lucky enough to be able to have a way to figure out around it to get it done. And yeah. And honestly, to have a boss that afforded me the time and the ability to do that. That's the biggest deal. And I have such great admiration for my boss. He's such a great human being, and I would hope that you guys would get on, go. There's actually a documentary about him called The Forrest Lucas Story, and it's a really good look into his life and where he comes from. Come from a dirt poor Indiana farm. He's a dirt poor Indiana farm boy, the oldest of 4 kids. He's got 3 sisters. And they were poor, really poor. And the other great thing about Forrest, and that's why he's not afraid of these people. He's not afraid to go out and do all the stuff he's doing. He's got no skeletons. He's got no skeletons. He's got no problem with being out there in front of people. And he figured, I got just enough name and just enough money and just enough tenacity to go after these people. And we're all, in agriculture, we're all very lucky that somebody like Forrest Lucas is out there and has taken this to the level that he has. And it's grown a ton. The other thing one thing I want to say also is that if you have issues, the Trump administration is begging for issues. They want to fix stuff. They're fixers. They want to fix stuff. And they've asked us several times what else is out there, whether it's the USDA, whether it's the Interior, whether it's the Vice President or the President, things that they can do to help us. Now, sometimes, I know there's times when, just like when they shrunk the monuments, I heard a lot of complaining about just shrinking the monuments when Zinke did that. And I guarantee you that was a very smart move. Instead of just wiping out the monuments, he shrunk them. And the reason he did that, and a lot of people don't understand this, and I didn't understand it at first. I was really disappointed, and then I got to talk to some folks that knew. And the reason they shrunk them instead of just wiping them out or getting rid of them was because if the next administration came in, if they just wiped them out, they'd be able to just put them back. But the way they did it, by shrinking them down, is going to make it way harder for them to make them bigger again. So the way they were effectively able to do that. Now, I don't know all the details and the legalities of that, but that's why they did that. So I kind of ran blocker for Zinke for a little bit on that one, just because he was getting beat up a little bit over that. But have patience. I just talked to the Hammonds tonight. We got a letter from the Department of Justice on their situation, and we're very close to getting their permit back. So and I want to express the way we're doing that is not by going bullheaded. I've cowboyed a lot in my life. I've been around a lot of stock contractors, a lot of ranchers. Sometimes we get a little hard-headed. And let's try to think outside the box. Try to think your way around it. Just like Wayne said. I don't even know where Wayne's at now. But anyway, oh, there he is back there. You forgot your hat over there on your seat, by the way, your new hat. So just like Wayne said, he told me earlier, 3 years ago, he wouldn't have known he was going to be in the position he's in with the water situation and that would have happened. Persevere, find a way around it. And if I can say anything about helping to get people motivated, or get them to do something, and why I've been successful and other people haven't at certain things, it's when people tell me I can't do something, I know it's a overused adage, but I am like, hold my beer, because I'm gonna get this done. I mean, people tell you can't get horse slaughter. People tell me I couldn't get a pardon for the Hammonds, or I couldn't do this, or I couldn't do that, or that couldn't happen. Even my lobbyist told me that. And I'm like, no, we got to think out. This is not. And our lobbyist has dealt with DC for 30 years. He's a great lobbyist, smart guy. But he's been dealing with DC for 30 years. And this is not the same DC of the last 30 years. This group of folks there, they want to go. They do things totally different. And they don't care about the way the swamp wants it done or the protocol. I mean, legally you got to follow certain protocols. But if you can go around it, they're going to go around it. They're going to figure a way around it. And that's where everybody here needs to think. It's the way we need to think for cool. We need to figure out a way around that. Bill and I we talk and we bounce ideas off on how to do that. I'm not sure how it's going to work out yet. But we've got some plans, and we've got some things that we think we can do. So if we can get that done, like I said, the other thing, we got horse slaughter coming back. We're going to need everybody's support on that. The gal, I don't know how many of you saw me on Tucker Carlson talking about horse meat, but that was quite entertaining. And especially because it didn't even dawn on me that I stumped Tucker, but somebody was telling me yesterday, that was so cool because not many people shut Tucker Carlson up. And because I told him, I said, Tucker, if you've eaten tacos on the beach in Cabo, you've eaten horse meat. And he was just like, and then he goes, well, you're making me rethink my next trip to Cabo. And the funny part was his producer didn't tell me because they don't want anybody to know, but we pre-recorded that, and he was headed to Cabo the next day. So about 2 weeks later, his producer told me that. So Tucker got I was cutting up some onions, making some dinner, and watching TV at the same time, and watching Tucker Carlson the other night, and here I am on the TV again, same interview. Well, then they brought he showed a little bit of my deal, and then he brought an advocate on, you know, one of the just the horse people that, you know, don't want to see us slaughter horses or anything, and she started spouting off all kinds of, total lies, and I started texting Tucker's producer, and it was funny because he just told me, he says, I already knew all that, because I told him, she said that they could rescue every horse, there's a home for every horse. Well, 150,000 horses are still going to slaughter every year just across our borders. And here's an argument for all of you who don't know this one. Every rescue in the United States can only hold 15,000 horses maximum. And we all know those horses don't go away. So it's not like they can take 15,000 a year. So where's the other 149,000 go, you know, if they're able to home horses and do all that. And I'm as big a horse lover as anybody, but I also don't like to see anything hurt or starved, or, you know, what's happening out on the BLM desert. And we're working on an angle for that too. So we got a real strong angle on that one too. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement. And like I tell everybody, if we don't get done what we need to get done in this administration, shame on us, because they're really, really helping out and want to help. Now, I don't think I got much more. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions that I could answer. If nobody has any questions, then I'm going to have a beer, maybe a cocktail. But if anybody has any questions I can answer, go ahead. Say what again? Oh.
Test.
Well, hold my beer. I can guarantee you I'll try. But there's I've already talked to I've talked to several people, and we all know there's a lot of opposition to that, and it's a lot of very well-funded opposition. But there's also, I want you to, you know, the old adage of David and Goliath, there's a lot of opposition in DC, but when you have right on your side, and I tell people this a lot, if you have the truth and you have right on your side, you're gonna win. You don't need all the money. You know, people look at us and how much accomplishments we're getting, and we don't get 150 million like the Humane Society of the United States, but we kick their ass every turn we can. And it's because we're right. We have the truth. And it's way easier to sell the truth on a lot less money than it is for them to have to pay to lie about it.
Well, if I heard right, they have resurrected the waters of the USA with EPA, and what that does, or what they are trying to do, is that they're only allowed to control what happens on navigable waters.
Right.
And then now they want to control every drop of water in the United States. And if something's going to put us down, that will.
You're exactly correct. And we were so fortunate that Scott Pruitt was in there in the EPA for as long as he was. You know, don't believe the hype on how he got run out of there. It was just they hammered poor Scott, and Scott was a good friend to Protect the Harvest. We'd worked with him when he was the AG of Oklahoma on several occasions, on several different things. He's a great human being. He's a great guy, and I hope that the Oklahomans welcome him back and let him become a senator or something like that there, where he can make some more effective change, because he's a gem, and he was wiping things out. But you know what? I don't think they helped themselves any, because the guy come in behind him ain't going to be any softer. So it's and the WOTUS deal. Yes, there was a judge that repealed the WOTUS decision, or repealed Trump's or Pruitt's WOTUS, getting rid of the WOTUS basically. I don't think it's going to come back into effect. I think they'll find a way around that. I truly believe that from what I'm hearing. And I know that this district court judge, basically said or that they couldn't do it and reinstated it, but I don't think they're ever going to get anything done there. On a similar note, I don't know how many of you saw what Zinke did when he sent the letter to California Water Authority. He thumped him on the head pretty hard, and he just said, basically, if you don't start following the federal laws on dumping all that water down the delta in the Sacramento River, and you don't start storing that and putting more back in the San Joaquin Valley and the Central Valley, then he was going to have Sessions, the AG, sue California Water Authority. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal, especially for California and the California farmers. Any other questions? I think you guys want to drink as much as I do. Thank you. Thanks for having me here, guys.